Picture a dark tarmac in Sicily, shortly after midnight. On one side, 80 elite American commandos, including members of SEAL Team 6. Surrounding them in the pitch black are roughly 300 heavily armed Italian troops, rifles raised and ready to fire. These two forces are staunch NATO allies, now standing inches away from a devastating firefight. Their standoff centers on the custody of 4 men sitting inside a grounded passenger plane. This crisis began a few days earlier, on October 8, 1985. The Achille Lauro, a 23,000-ton Italian cruise liner, was docked in Alexandria, Egypt. As it left port, 4 hijackers struck, cornering the passengers in the dining room and firing over their heads. The attackers, members of the Palestinian Liberation Front, demanded that Israel release 50 incarcerated Palestinians. This local hostage situation quickly forced multiple allied nations into the same arena, each with their own stakes in the outcome. A unified response to the hijacking proved impossible. Because each nation acted on incompatible domestic priorities, their interests were destined to collide. Italian Prime Minister Bettino Craxi was motivated by a specific diplomatic goal. Italy had spent years cultivating relationships with Arab states across the Mediterranean, and Craxi needed a peaceful, bloodless resolution to avoid alienating those allies. Egypt's attempt to mediate the crisis relied on a Palestinian diplomat they intercepted in Cairo. They tasked Mohammed Abbas with negotiating the surrender, unaware that Abbas was the mastermind who had orchestrated the hijacking in the first place. With the architect of the crime acting as the mediator, the Italian and Egyptian governments quickly signed off on a deal. The terrorists would leave the ship and vanish into Egypt, effectively ending the crisis on paper. This plan stood in direct opposition to American doctrine. The United States maintained a strict zero-tolerance policy for negotiating with terrorists, viewing any such deal as a failure of justice. While Italy and Egypt pursued a settlement, the U.S. began mobilizing special forces for a military rescue. They intended to seize the hijackers while the ship was still in international waters, acting completely independently of their allies. By accommodating the hijackers, Italy and Egypt reached a settlement that the United States was structurally incapable of accepting. The friction between these two approaches ensured that a diplomatic solution would only move the conflict into a more dangerous phase. Sober. The diplomatic deal was shattered by a horrific discovery. The hijackers had murdered Leon Klinghoffer, a wheelchair-bound Jewish-American citizen, and ordered his body thrown overboard. The murder turned the Italian and Egyptian diplomatic route into a public failure. The Americans were now focused on a single objective, ensuring the killers did not escape. Despite American demands for prosecution, Egypt attempted to secretly fly the hijackers out of the country to Tunisia on a commercial Boeing 737. The U.S. military responded immediately. As the 737 took off, an aircraft carrier task force launched F-14 fighter jets into the night sky to hunt down the passenger plane. The fighters surrounded the 737 in the dark and scrambled its communications, preventing the pilot from calling Cairo for help. Trapped and unable to communicate, the pilot was forced to follow the F-14s to the NATO Air Base at Sigonella, Sicily. This interception physically moved the geopolitical conflict from international waters directly onto sovereign Italian soil, setting the stage for the midnight standoff. Back on the tarmac, the tension was at its peak. The Italians were outraged, feeling deeply respected by an unannounced American military incursion into their airspace and onto their base. A jurisdictional paradox fueled the standoff. Italy claimed legal authority because the crime occurred on an Italian ship. The U.S. demanded custody to seek justice for a murdered American citizen. For 5 hours, the two allies remained at a stalemate. The standoff only ended when the U.S. backed down, realizing that shooting at an allied nation's forces would be a political catastrophe. Italian authorities boarded the plane and arrested the hijackers, eventually sentencing the triggerman to 30 years. However, they allowed the mastermind, Mohammed Abbas, to slip away, claiming a lack of evidence for his immediate arrest. The Sigonella incident showed how fragile international alliances can be. When forced to choose between shared principles and domestic interests, nations will almost always protect their own, even if it means pointing a gun at a friend.